What's up, upstanders? Dr. O here, and I'm talking about Trump's DEI rollback on policies and what people should be doing about it and how we should be going about even talking about it. When I ran for city council when I lived in DC a while ago, I said something that I learned, which is very poignant now. The first thing we have to be mindful of is what language are we using to counter what is being said about DEI and the actions that are being done. And in the political space, the mindset of when you're using your opponent's language, even if you're making great points, they are winning. Part of the problem of those of us who are out there challenging what's happening with the Trump administration and its anti DEI policies is that we're using their language. And so we're using their language and throwing out things like talking about quotas and talking about things like woke policies and all of these terms that they co opted. And that's problematic as it relates to making our arguments because it's the same thing I saw when I was on the Dr. Phil show. Many of these guys who have conversations or debates who are anti DEI, they mainly think of DEI as it relates to systems of quotas and numbers of they don't think of anything else because they don't have a mindset to actually go deeper. So all they can look at is representation. And within that idea of representation, they're going to look for number of black people, the number of Latino people, the number of Asians, the number of women, or whatever, and they're going to count them up by a number and automatically assume that they are not qualified. That's where the challenge first has to begin. Because DEI doesn't mean that. Diversity, yes, is a state of being different. Equitable is about how you're helping different people with different needs get to the same space. And then inclusion is about what Dr. King was saying about integration, which is about the sharing of power, resources, and responsibility. And so when I see people debate these Republicans and all of these different guys about Trump's DEI policies, we're using their language to argue something, and that is problematic. And now you see that they're coming up with new language like forget DEI and we need MEI or MEI, which is merit, excellence, and intelligence. Well, our response should be, well, where is Pete Hegseth's merit? Where's his excellence? And where's his intelligence as it relates to deleting the Department of Defense? You see what I'm saying? Like, call out each letter and break things down. The fact of the matter is, one of the reasons these Republicans get over, and look how quickly MEI has made it across all of the media streams. Look how quickly DEI didn't earn it. DEI, as they say, has made it across these media streams, even into these so-called liberal platforms in terms of media and the like, because they're masters at creating short phrases. They're masters at creating little terminology that goes far. And we cannot continue to argue this on their terms. When we talk about why DEI is necessary, we need to talk about the importance of having a skilled workforce. We need to talk about the people who are in these positions actually have degrees, actually have intelligence, actually have experience that can serve people. We need to talk about the idea of including people who have various forms of disabilities and the like. When I go to Best Buy and somebody's helping me and they're in a wheelchair, I'm getting the same great service that I would as somebody else who's not. Like, we need to be able to speak and communicate on that. We need to talk about that. This DEI programs are going to affect medical distributions. Look at what they're doing right now as it relates to rolling back some of Biden's drug policies as well. So we know that $35 insulin, all of that type of stuff is going to be changing, right? DEI is also looking at health disparities within our communities. And that goes for poor white people as well. So that's number one. Number two, rather than spending all of our efforts condemning what the Trump administration is doing, we need to be in the planning and organizing stages. All of these DEI efforts, whether it's talking about government rollbacks or whether we're talking about corporate rollbacks from companies, nobody can tell you where to spend your dollars. So that's step number one. Where are you spending your money? Are you spending it with places that are not supporting what you believe in? Are you spending money in places that won't celebrate you but will just tolerate you so they can get your dollar? So one of the first things we know is that many of these restaurants out there that we might have been supporting, if we don't like their policies and their rollbacks and their changes, we stop spending our dollars there. And maybe we're like, well, what do we do then? Maybe many of us use food apps to order stuff. You can order things from somewhere else. It may take a little longer to get to your home, so on and so forth. Little things. Some of us are in jobs where they're having these DEI rollbacks, and we're expressing our frustration and sadness and anger at the organization instead of preparing to find a new job or start a new business. And I understand that every point or that I bring up here, somebody's gonna say, I can't do that, easy for you to say, blah, blah, blah. No, what I'm hoping at is that people who are hearing me will look at the one thing that they can do in their space and start making that effort to change. And I believe that everybody can do something. I'm never gonna settle for where everybody just has to do, we're helpless. I just don't believe that. When I just look at black people specifically, I grew up hearing all of these stats that if black people put all their wealth together, we'd be the 10th richest country in the world. So the money is there. Nobody can stop us from supporting organizations like Costco more and Target more, and organizations that say they're going to stay committed to DEI. You got children in schools, and these schools are rolling back their DEI programs, and some of them are rolling back programs the little that they actually had. Now's the time, if you have the ability, if you have the means, to find another school. Now, some of us may not have the actual means to do that, but for some of us, the means we'll just have to drive 5 extra miles, and we have a car and we have the ability to do that. Or, we might have to switch towards moving towards, a car and driving to the bus stop or so on and so forth. My wife and I have had to change schools several times because the schools were not meeting the needs in terms of what we believed our children need. Many of us have the ability to do that. Those of us who don't have the ability to do that, are you holding your schools to the fire? Are you holding them to account while you're there? Are you letting your children speak for what they need to see? Right? Like, that's something that you have the ability to do. Those who have the ability to move from, right now, when I look at the immigration policies, it's only blue states, from what I can tell, that are challenging these DEI, these anti-immigration policies, which is connected to DEI as well. Some of you who have the ability to move might want to look at doing that, right? Or maybe even moving to a different community in your city that might be in your state that might be more blue. These are things that some of us are able to do. Some of us need to stop watching some of these shows where we know that we have some of these actors or the companies that put out these shows that are not interested in embracing DEI in any way, shape, or form. Some movies, now anybody can do that. Some artists maybe we need to stop listening to. Some podcasts maybe we need to unsubscribe from. Most of what we do nowadays is through our phones, and if you're paying a phone bill, you can make some different choices in terms of what you're consuming and what you're demanding, because your ratings matter, your clicks matter, all of those things matter. And so we need to have real formulated arguments. Even I talk about in my book, DEI, on DEI, when I talk about the fake activism towards critical race theory, and now they have anti-critical race theory legislation and anti-woke legislation, things that are non-existent in our schools. We have to be able to call this out. The reason why Trump is able to do this, the reason why the DeSantises of the world have been able to do this, is because they've co-opted the language, they have a media ecosystem, and so many of us argue using their language, even though we are the ones with the facts. We are the ones with the actual knowledge. We are the ones with the merit, the excellence, and the intelligence, and we know that. So when I see what's happening with the federal government, I've done so much DEI work with so many people there, and those who got put on paid leave, and so we know that this is just a process to get you fired. So what are you doing when they're about to fire you, and you're about to be fired? Are you doing the work to rewire? This is the time to start getting the resumes out to other places. This is the time to maybe start looking at going back to school. This is the time to maybe start forming your own company, your own business, joining other organizations. No, this isn't about, this is easy for me to say. I've lived through all of this. I've already lived through Trump's first DEI, anti-DEI mandates in 2016. And this is my main part of my business. What I am saying is, you who I'm talking to right now are enough. You are enough as an individual. You are enough as a household. You are enough as a family. You are enough as a company. So don't start, we can't keep getting angry. Many of these companies and organizations that are rolling back their DEI programs, many of them, if we're going to be honest about it, many of them are not doing it out of cowardice. They were just looking for a permission structure after the George Floyd Black Matters Lives fatigue, after all of that died down. They were just looking for a permission structure. So some are saying fear of lawsuits, and all this other type of stuff. But some just always wanted to do it because they're tired. And that's just real. It's what Dr. King talked about it, and many individuals and organizations believing in freedom for Black people on a type of installment plan. Those are the words that he used. Get to a certain place, stop. Get to a certain place, stop. That's how Reconstruction ended. The idea that, hey, we've done enough for y'all. Didn't y'all just get free now? Like, we're good. Let's end Reconstruction. And then Jim Crow comes along. Then we get civil rights, and it's like, okay, y'all got enough rights. And then the list goes on and on and on. So look, the country is showing that it doesn't want us. And I remember a story, well, doesn't want us in positions of excellence. Let's put it that way. And I remember when Oprah and Ayanna Van Zant were having their beef, and Oprah was like, yo, come on the show. Let's have it out right here. And they had a national debate on this whole issue. And one of the things that Oprah said, which was so powerful, when Ayanna said something to the effect of, well, you could have called me, or we could have, you told me you wanted this and this, and I could have stayed, something to that effect. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And Oprah said something that was just so deep. She said, it's not my job to make you want me. And that has to be our mindset. It's not our job to make this government, to make corporations that are rolling back, to make schools that are getting rid of stuff. It's not our job to make them want us. Our job is to make JOB, Journey of the Best, Journey of the Bountiful, Journey of the Beautiful, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to Journey of the Broke when you're not happy. Our job is to put ourselves in positions where we can be celebrated and not tolerated. So yes, I'm part of the people who are condemning these programs and these rollbacks, whether we're talking about schools, whether we're talking about the federal government, whether we're talking about companies. It is problematic. I am out there critiquing it. And it's not something that we can let just go fly by. But we also all need to be action planning in different ways, because we are enough. We have enough money to support each other. We have enough businesses to support each other. We have enough clout and rank and experience to build ourselves up. But how many of us are going to be willing to actually do that? It's so easy to point fingers at what the Trump administration is doing, but we have to spend more time right now focused on the three fingers that are pointing back at us. And that has to be our charge right now. There is something you can do in your life, in your career, to prepare for what's coming down. And some of y'all are already dealing with it already. As the late, great Joe Madison said, what are you going to do about it? I hope some of the tips that I gave will help you on that path, but this is not the end of it. This is just the beginning. We need to keep moving forward. And by the way, we need to also keep voting. We need to stay engaged in the political process. So when Biden came in to office, he reversed those anti-DEI policies and executive orders that Trump had, which opened up the gates for many of us who are doing the work that we're doing. Can we get more people back in the midterms? Can we get more people back in the next president in the next election who's going to embrace all of us? There's also a voting component that goes along with this. And some of y'all who stayed home because y'all didn't care, or some of y'all didn't vote because of this reason or that reason, you're finding out that you are not immune from what's happening right now. Just get out there and do the work. We got work to do. What are you going to do about it? Peace.